Everybody, it is the 92nd annual meeting of the Boston Municipal Research Bureau. So we've been around a really long time, and it is a pleasure to have you all gathered here today. My name is Stephanie Lee. I have the honor of serving as chair of the board of the Research Bureau, as well as holding the position as vice president of state and local government affairs for Verizon in New England. So Mayor Wu, city councilors, and all city officials and guests, on behalf of the Research Bureau, welcome. I am overwhelmed by how full the room is and that we have broken a record with 50 Boston employees here today, so that is wonderful. We are delighted to have you all here as we embark on what promises to be an exciting and very busy year. We know you're all feeling it, right? It's like the world is in full motion, and it's not just because we're in the wake of an eclipse. I want to express our heartfelt gratitude to all of you who support the Research Bureau, whether it's through contributions to our membership campaign, participation in our events, sponsorship of our Shattuck Awards, or simply being here as a guest today. Your support is instrumental in making the Research Bureau a success. I also want to extend a special thank you to the sponsors of today's event, especially our premier sponsors, Blue Cross, Citizens, Comcast, the Drew Company, P&G Gillette, and Vicinity. Thank you to all of our other corporate sponsors whose names are in your program. So 2023 certainly kept the Research Bureau busy. As we always do, we delve into Boston's financial situation and we navigate through our own leadership transition. But looking ahead, 2024 is shaping up to be equally, if not more, eventful. If there's one thing I can say about 2024 so far, we are not bored. And I'm sure you all feel that, right? Sharing that. On the leadership transition front, many of you already know Marty Walls, but we're very fortunate that we were able to bring Marty, who has depth of experience as a state rep, a labor attorney. She knows nonprofits. She has been an interim for, 6 or 7. And she brings her expertise here. She also has a wonderful grasp of the issues facing our city as well as the Commonwealth. So thank you, Marty, for joining us. But she's also going to have a very special role as she helps us navigate and reimagine what the future will look like for Boston Municipal Research Bureau at a pivotal time as our city continues to evolve and grow. She is someone who will uphold our standards of quality research and is supercharging our organization. I think you can kind of feel the energy when she's around. Very soon, though, we are going to be embarking on a search for our next permanent president. And we're going to be asking for help for the community. We've been talking to folks. Right now we're interviewing executive search firms, so that's in play right now. But we're going to be looking for that very special person we're going to need to lead this organization, and we hope you can help find it. So when we're ready, we're going to be sharing job descriptions. We're going to ask for the community for ideas. We'll be looking near and far because it's going to be tough. We've had wonderful presidents. I see you over there, Sam Tyler. Thank you for joining us. So we're going to look back a little bit. When I look back on 2023 and the first busy quarter of 2024, I see and I'm proud to be part of an organization that is steadfastly dedicated to its mission, tirelessly striving to improve our city. It's an organization that values fairness and accuracy and cares deeply about Boston's future. We advocate for what is best for the entire city, even when difficult decisions must be made in the short term. We also understand the challenges of our elected leaders and what you face day in and day out. We know your role isn't easy, and we hope our work helps you be more effective. We really value your partnership and look forward to continuing to work to shape the future of our city. Our membership consists of individuals and directors who exhibit an unwavering dedication to moving the Research Bureau forward and doing what is best for the city where we live and work. Their sense of responsibility is core to our success. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize the invaluable contributions of our dedicated staff members, starting with our interim president, Marty Walls, our policy analyst, Grant Farrington, who actually is working on the finishing touches of a study right now, so stay tuned. Our membership and operations manager, Erin McGinley, who, thank you, today would not happen without your support. Our fabulous co-op students, Cameron Foley and Sam Candanasso, and the person who all of us know who's done this for years, so many years, and we wouldn't be what we are without Elaine Beatty. Their dedication and passion for their work, as well as their commitment to improving Boston, are truly remarkable. I'm humbled every day. It's a very small staff, and it's amazing what they do. It's just layers and layers of work, and as you know, the topics are quite complex and not always easy to delve into, and this small staff just gets right to the crux. Thank God we have the database with the databases. But they don't just need the databases. They're fabulous connecting those dots. As we look ahead to the upcoming year, we anticipate challenges, but also excitement of moving forward. We remain steadfast in our commitment to strengthening our relationship with the mayor, everyone in her administration, and the members of the city council. And just a few weeks ago, we had the pleasure of meeting with the city council at a breakfast. It's an old tradition that the Research Bureau had year in, year out, but we had had a hiatus due to the pandemic. So it had been a few years, and the city council's changed quite a bit since then, but it was just amazing to not only have some time just to talk about issues, but to get to know each other. And we have decided that we will do it. We're not going to wait a year to do that again. We'll do it again probably in the fall, which was a suggestion by multiple city councilors. So I want to thank our friends at Suffolk University, John Nucci, for helping make that happen. So we hope all the members of the city and the mayor, the city council, all of your teams will continue to rely on the Research Bureau as a source of insight, as a consultant to propel Boston forward. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention one of the highlights of 2024, the 39th Henry L. Shattuck Public Service Awards, which will be held, we have a date, October 17th, right here at the Seaport. And I can attest that the Shattuck Awards is a wonderful opportunity. I think some of us, when you're in public office and you're in the business community, we go to these types of events all the time. But those unsung heroes that work for the city, that work in the schools, that work for the DPW, that work for the Parks Department, that work in your offices, they don't always get the opportunity. And so it's great not just to have them come out, but to be able to recognize their contributions. It is probably my favorite event in the city of Boston, and it's super magical. And I want to thank our Shattuck Award Committee that for all their hard work. They're already looking for nominations, right? So if you know of a city worker that deserves to be recognized, we are taking nominations through May 8th. Please go to our website, bmrb.org, and download, I sound like a commercial now, download the nomination form. Because this is your chance to recognize those who make our city work. So I know the mayor is on her way in a few minutes. Oh my goodness, I didn't even see you sneak in. Oh, look at there. Oh, she went to the start. Good. Okay, now I can introduce you. I'm going to go, all right, I was going to do a song before you arrived, and nobody wants to hear that. Thank you. She snuck in stealth. It's an honor today to introduce Mayor Michelle Wu, a trailblazer and a visionary leader whose commitment to public service, dedication to advancing equity and justice, and tireless advocacy for the residents of Boston have earned her admiration and respect across the city and beyond. It is such an honor to have you here today. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you so much. I wanted to hear the song, so maybe afterwards. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for your leadership, for all that you do for our city, and for the many, many ways in which you are cheering on our public workforce. I agree with you. The Shattuck event is so special, and it's a tradition that is treasured among our city departments as well. It means so much to have that hard work recognized, because it's not always, and I'm thinking now about the biggest event in Boston, which will be coming up on Monday, the Boston Marathon. And as I've stepped into this role and really gotten the peek underneath or behind the curtain of all the many, many layers of preparation, of coordination, of logistics, it happens with every single city service that's delivered. And it's really thanks to the partnership of this group that we've had that careful accountability, but also dedicated focus to how we can do better and more for our residents. So thank you so much to Marty and to your entire board, to all of the leaders who are in this room, to the guests and visitors, elected officials. Thank you, Madam President Liu Zhen and Boston City Council. I see you're sitting with our district attorney, Kevin Hayden, as well as former DA, Dan Conley. I saw former councilor Michael Flaherty on the way in as well. I'm sure. And are there any other elected officials who are here? Okay, well. They were here earlier, and I took too long. And thank you so much to all of our cabinet members and everyone who works for the City of Boston for making everything possible that we're talking about here today. I am grateful that this room represents leadership across so many different sectors, businesses, nonprofits, community organizations who are all reflected in this room. Thank you for your work, and it is truly unimaginable what the city would be like without all that you do every single day. Your leadership, your workforce, the innovation that you bring, all of it is inextricable from the city that we are. And I want to start by just saying a little bit about how I see the city that we are, what kind of city Boston is today. Now, some of you might know, one feature of my office is that I have a piano in there, in my fifth floor office, right next to the window that looks out onto Faneuil Hall. And I play whenever it's for a moment of relief or fun or inspiration or stress after I've had too much of the city council. But last week, I'm just kidding. Last week, I let someone else play that very special piano in my office. Her name is Sophia, and she's 4 years old. And as she was sitting there on the bench and putting her tiny fingers on all the different keys, she giggled and looked back over her shoulder at her dad, who was standing next to me. He was smiling that kind of beautiful, goofy smile of total love for your child. Naz is a great dad, but he would be the first to tell you that that wasn't always the case. 3 years before we stood in my office watching his daughter plunking away at the keys, Naz was arrested in Dorchester on drug and firearm charges, and he was only 21 years old. Last week, he graduated from the city's grassroots program, designed to give court-involved young adults the skills to find and keep good jobs. Under our City of Boston's community safety team's guidance, Naz now has his OSHA 30 certification, his civilian flagger certification, a CPR first aid certification, and has completed training on obtaining a hoisting license, and we were celebrating him in my office the other day. That is the kind of city Boston is, one that refuses to give up on our people, knowing that to make our communities safer and healthier, we need to make them whole. And so we work relentlessly, meticulously, across every sector, industry, every angle and approach to create opportunity and improve the quality of life across all of our communities. And it's paying off. Today, Boston is the safest major city in the country. After the first full year of our administration, gun violence in Boston hit record lows. And last year, the city broke that record and set a new low Citywide, shootings are down nearly 40% year over year, and compared to the 5-year average, homicides are down 75%. Now, it's not enough. We will be the first to say that the 2 homicides that have taken place this year is too many. But our relentless planning, the focus and coordination has dramatically driven down loss of life in our city. It's come from standing up the weekly youth safety meetings between the Boston Police Department, BPS, Boston Public Health Commission, and all of our community partners, monthly strategic planning meetings with our Ending Community Violence Steering Group. Boston Police has prioritized community policing through new ways of engaging neighborhood leaders, boosting staffing through expanded academy classes that have been the most diverse in the city's history, and we negotiated a collective bargaining agreement that set a new national precedent for accountability alongside important operational reforms. And we won't rest until Boston is a city where everyone is safe. 3 years ago, the humanitarian crisis at Mass Ave and Melnia Cass Boulevard dominated the discourse. Some questioned whether the issue was too big or too complex to solve. Hundreds of people were living in nearly 200 tents throughout Atkinson Street, Southampton Street, and the Newmarket Triangle. But we refused to look away from these loved ones and neighbors struggling with substance use and mental health and homelessness, and we built out an infrastructure, physical and organizational, in ways the city never had. We created new low-threshold housing and shelter with wraparound medical and recovery services. Daily 8:45 a.m. multi-agency meetings for a level of coordination unlike ever before. Direct street outreach from our public health and safety teams to address the needs and complexities person by person, and an ordinance, thanks to the Boston City Council, to empower more immediate public safety response. We spun up overnight mobile outreach teams to always have capacity to connect individuals to shelter, storage, and transportation options. It's taken time and planning and a lot of trust building, but we are seeing the difference. Since we transitioned more than 100 people into shelters, reunited them with family, or connected them to treatment last November, not a single tent has returned to the area. Year over year in that neighborhood, and I see and now recognize Sheriff Steve Tompkins and his team, who have been an incredible partner in that area of the city and on these issues overall as well. Year over year in that area of the city, reported incidents of residential burglary are down nearly 80%, vehicle theft is down nearly 30%, and total violent crime is down 22%. And most importantly, to date, more than 600 people have been connected to housing and services. Today, Boston is a national model for what it looks like to take a public health and public safety approach to addressing homelessness, substance use, and violence. Now, there are some who seem to think that unless we declare victory on Mass and Cass and say we're done and it's over, that we're admitting defeat. But homelessness is not a war we are fighting, and our streets are not a battlefield. Our focus is on doing the work to get people the care and support they need. And until every single person who needs care has it, our work will not be done. I share all of this as a way of illustrating how we do what we do as a city. We work collaboratively across departments and agencies and with our partners and community. We work meticulously, pairing structural adjustments and systemic improvements with an individualized approach, building real relationships one person at a time. And we work relentlessly, never backing down and coming at the challenge from every angle, from on-the-ground outreach all the way up through legislation and everything in between. It's that same approach that's guided our work to permit the greatest number of affordable housing units in a generation, to make 3 bus lines fare-free. It's how we've managed to expand universal pre-K to 640 more families, to repair and reopen more pools in the last year than at any other time in the last 20 years. It's embodied by our partnership with National Grid to launch the city's first network geothermal pilot for clean energy at one of our largest public housing developments, and in our commitment with Vertex and MassBio to train and hire 1,000 Boston residents into the life sciences sector by the end of next year. That approach is how we did what some said could never be done with the BPDA, formally establishing a city planning department and restoring planning as a core function of city government. And with our public schools, for years, the city's talked about leveraging colleges and universities alongside our largest employers and leading industries to create life-changing opportunities for our students. Now, we've established Boston's first ever university-assisted community hub school through a groundbreaking partnership between UMass Boston and the BCLA McCormick High School, and in partnership with Mass General Brigham, alongside a nearly $40 million investment from Bloomberg Philanthropies, we are transforming BPS's Edward M. Kennedy Health Careers Academy into the country's most advanced training ground for healthcare professionals and a national model for career-connected learning. UMass in the house. See you guys. And there are so many more examples because we are building early college and career partnerships between our anchor institutions and every BPS high school. Our superintendent will demand no less. In other words, from public safety to public education, home ownership to childcare, I'm proud that our administration has built a track record of taking on challenges and delivering results through focused planning and determined coordination. All this is possible through careful stewardship of our city budget, with focused planning for the full range of scenarios in this moment of economic transition. So let's start with where Boston stands today. We see encouraging signs of steady economic recovery across many of the major indicators we track. Our unemployment rate is just 3.2%, half a percentage point below the national average. We've recovered more than half of our post-pandemic losses in workforce numbers. And compared to 2019, employment in Boston's key industries is up, 4% above pre-pandemic in professional and financial services, 4% up in healthcare and education, 5% up in production, construction, and logistics. The number of international passengers coming through Logan exceeded pre-pandemic levels for the second half of last year. And in East Boston, Jamaica Plain, South Boston, and West Roxbury, overall spending is up 20% compared to pre-pandemic levels. Nationwide construction costs have increased by more than 2.5%, but in Boston, those costs are down 1.1%. Commuter rail ridership is up 20% from last year, and foot traffic is at 96% of what it was pre-pandemic in 2019. And last year, the visitor center saw nearly 1.8 million visitors, an increase of 8% from 2022. Downtown, the number of vacant storefronts has gone down by nearly 17%. I see Mike Nichols and Vid in the room. Our commercial vacancy rate is well below the national average, at half that of cities like LA, Houston, Dallas, and San Francisco, although we are watching and working on that very intensely. Our diversified economy in Boston draws its strength from key industries that tend toward in-person work, such as healthcare and life sciences. And several of our largest employers have instituted return-to-work policies that affirm the power of in-person collaboration and the benefits of being in Boston. I especially want to thank our anchor employers for your commitment to our city and your partnership on so many of the issues that matter for our residents and your workforce. But even from a place of steady recovery, we are taking action to build long-term stability and plan responsibly and proactively for every possible outcome. The biggest threats to our economy right now in Boston are our housing crisis and uncertainty about shifting work patterns impacting downtown vacancies. For context, the city is not facing a $1 billion shortfall. Under the stringent parameters of state property tax law, if valuations decline in one sector, municipal tax collection automatically shifts to another sector. Currently, of the nearly 3/4 of the city revenues that come from property taxes, roughly 60% of that comes from commercial property owners and 40% from residential property owners. That ratio has been in place for many years because we as a city have made the decision to put as little burden as possible on our residents, renters, and homeowners. For Boston to become even less affordable would be bad for residents and businesses alike. And I hear all the time from our employers that housing prices are the #1 challenge right now in recruiting and retaining talent. So we filed a tax classification home rule petition to be prepared for every situation, to be able to preserve the stability of our existing tax structure and reduce dramatic shifts in where the burden falls. What we want for all property taxpayers, commercial and residential, is for next year's taxes and the year after to look as much as possible like the taxes from last year and the year before, to be able to preserve that ratio of property tax distribution in order to avoid exacerbating our housing crisis. So the Home Rule petition is a precautionary measure. It will cushion us should we need to apply it. But our real focus is on the bigger picture solutions. Last month, our Office of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion, headed by Chief Iruwu, celebrated the second round of Boston Space Grant recipients, 37 entrepreneurs receiving more than $4.5 million in funding approved and allocated by the City Council to bring their ideas to life in vacant storefronts across the city. With new management also at Quincy Market, we have a real opportunity to get one of our most popular downtown spaces involved in driving our recovery. Next year, we'll bring hundreds of free arts and cultural experiences to Boston as part of our first ever public art triennial, and we're gearing up for a packed summer of open streets, festivals, concerts, and activations on City Hall Plaza to continue drawing foot traffic and economic activity. And last summer, we announced our office to residential conversion program, offering an average of 75% reduction in the standard residential tax rate over 29 years. Since then, Chief Jemison and his team have collaborated with property owners to get 10 underutilized downtown commercial buildings so far into the pipeline to become more than 200 new residential units. And we're having ongoing conversations that we hope will boost this number in the near future. We also know that there's a lot of pressure on market rate housing development right now. Most of the housing permitted in Boston over the past decade was financed in a near zero interest rate environment. We're now at 7.5%, a 22-year high, and it could be 18 to 24 months for rates to come down, and they may never get back down to those near zero levels again. To that end, we spent a lot of time over the last 6 months looking closely at potential strategies to accelerate housing production and grow our tax base, including evaluating direct financial incentives. We partnered with Professor Ed Glazer, my former professor over at Harvard, and a team of economists to consider how city government might encourage production while protecting taxpayers and our future tax base. We talked to dozens of developers with projects in the pipeline. But the truth is, for many housing developments, interest rates will need to come down by at least 100 to 200 basis points for construction to start. For our tax dollars to get them over that hump in this environment, we would need to forego many years, and in some cases decades, of future tax revenue. At this moment, that isn't in the best interest of our residents. Now, some of you have been in the room with us as we have weighed every option and explored what levers we might be able to pull at the local level. No group in the city more closely monitors our fiscal policies and service delivery, so I know all of you feel the complexity involved in exploring something like this. As the situation evolves, we'll be counting on your counsel and partnership to inform the decisions we make as the macro environment shifts. We know how urgent it is that the city serves as a partner in clearing as many obstacles as we can to get shovels in the ground on housing production. And we're leaving no stone unturned. Last year, the BPDA approved nearly 7,400 housing units for future development. We're streamlining approvals and revamping the Article 80 process for the first time in decades for more predictability. And we're taking steps that have never been taken before, from offering up city-owned lots for hundreds of units of new housing to launching Squares and Streets, the first citywide rezoning initiative in 60 years, which will add more homes and vibrancy to business districts and major hubs across our city. Yesterday, I was very grateful to the City Council for joining us for our annual budget breakfast, where the team and I presented our proposed fiscal year 2025 budget to the Council. Over the last 2 budget cycles, our administration has laid a foundation to focus on what families need to thrive, and we've invested in the resources and infrastructure for affordability, resiliency, and equity throughout our neighborhoods. With a focus on ensuring stability for city services under the fullest range of economic scenarios, this year we are doubling down on delivering excellent city services by improving existing processes and expanding access to reach more families more effectively with what we're already doing. A significant chunk of the growth in this year's budget reflects a structural addition to city government from the new planning department. But because we're transitioning not just the staffing, but also the funding from the BPDA to the City of Boston, the transfer is revenue neutral. Accounting for that difference, the FY25 budget is on par with last year's growth. The investments in this year's budget are precise and intensely focused to shore up systems to maintain and sustain city programming and infrastructure. We start with sustainability for the city workforce. This year's budget growth includes equitable wage increases for city workers negotiated through many of our recently settled collective bargaining agreements to keep pace with the cost of living and with a higher percentage of increases for workers earning less than $60,000 per year. We've also continued to choose the fiscal discipline of maintaining our planned schedule to fully fund pension requirements and debt obligations, which not only honors our commitment to retirees who have spent decades in service to our city, but also it's critical that we protect our city's AAA bond rating, which enables us to complete city projects at the best possible rates. And the budget also dedicates a significant portion of funding to the Boston Public Schools. I don't need to tell this room that there's no more critical long-term investment for the health and success of our city. Our schools aren't just a deciding factor when it comes to trying to recruit talent. They're the places where our young people become the leaders our world needs. It's the highlight of my week whenever I get to spend time with our young people, whether at our downtown championship parade last Saturday for the 5 BPS schools that brought home state championships, or seeing them in the science lab at Vertex. This year, we've had even more spaces to build community for our young people and their families. This coming Sunday will be our 6th free day at some of our leading cultural institutions for BPS students and families, many of whom are stepping into these spaces for the very first time. Since launching, nearly 13,000 students and families have attended BPS Sundays. I've been at these events with my family, and the excitement and energy is palpable to see our students at home in the spaces where they can dream and grow. They're learning, they're exploring, and in many cases, they are proudly bringing their family members with them to have an experience together. I've even seen school groups come together where everyone from the class will just plan to meet up at the zoo or the aquarium because it's affordable and accessible to everyone on these days. My driving goal every day, and the goal of our administration, is to make Boston a home for everyone in every sense of the word. My first language was Chinese, and in Chinese, the character for home is also the character for family. For the first few years of my life, my vocab didn't distinguish between the place where you lived and the place and the people you lived there with. Both were inextricably connected, both equally important to one's sense of belonging. Home is where your basic needs are met, where you're happy, healthy, and safe. Home is where your dreams can grow. And home is where you're with the people you love most. The only way we're going to tackle any and all of the challenges that lie ahead for us, whether they're economic, environmental, or political, is if we make Boston a place where people want to live, a community where everyone truly feels at home. And I want to thank all of you for partnering with us in that goal. Thanks for all that you do for our city. Can I stay up here?
Who's got questions for the mayor?
You stunned everybody. You answered all their questions. All right. And now we can move on. They have only you for a question. You want to close this out? No questions. I know when you want to leave.
I never thought I would be in a room with 300 speechless business and public leaders. But it was so wonderful to hear from you, Mayor Wu. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I would once again like to thank every person in this room for your partnership and your support. We look forward to seeing you, and remember the Shattuck Awards are in 6 months. Thank you.